Kia ora mai koutou, e mehe kāne ki a koutou e tatu mai nei ki runga te kārangara e tēnei kaupapa hira ko te whenua Māori, na e tatu mai nei ki a whakawhiti kōrero ki te kauwhau hoki a pāna ki tēnei kaupapa hira. Hata mātou nei whakehere ara na policies e pāna ki te whenua Māori, i tēnei mātou, hiana mātou ki te wātia tētahi huarahi mō ngā hapu mō ngā whānau, kia whakautu mai mātou nei whakaroa pāna ki te mātou nei tini o tēnei o wēnei kaupapa whakahere. Nā reira, ko tēnei te mihi atu kia koutou, ki runga te krini nei, koutou e mātaki tēnei mai te tūruroa o te kainga, tēnā ra koutou katoa. So today's program, my name is Aaron Taikato. I'm the facilitating today's kōrero and the General Manager for Strategy and Democracy with the Whangarei District Council. And great to have you here today on screen, team, and also that those that may be watching this with interest, our whānau, sitting at home watching this, hopefully that this presentation provides some answers for your questions that you may have in terms of some of the policy changes that we're looking at implementing within the Whangarei District Council, and which is pertinent in regards to our whenua Māori. So as I said, my name's Aaron Taikato. I'll hand this around the room so that the rest of the staff and those that may be contributing to the presentation can also introduce themselves. Kia ora mai. Over to you, please, Jared.
Kia ora, Aaron. Kia ora mai tātou. Aloha mai. Yes, you're allowed a nice clock.
Timing of ngā tamariki.
Rena. Aloha mai. Ko anō tēnei ko Jared Pittman tōku ingoa he uri tēnei noa whangarei te ringa parawa ko Patuara ki te hapu. Ko au te kauwhakahaere whenua Māori Service for Te Puni Kōkiri. Kia ora.
Kia ora, Alison.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Alison Pouchot tōku ingoa. Ko te Revenue Manager aho mō Whangarei District Council, nā rehia tēnā koutou katoa. So I'm the Revenue Manager at Whangarei District Council. My name's Alison Pouchot.
Kia ora, Alison. Genuine.
Kia ora, everyone. My name is Jenilyn. I'm also from the Revenue Department. So I'm the Revenue and Collections Administrator. I'm here to listen to what's up this afternoon. Thanks.
Kia ora, thank you, Genuine. And finally, but certainly not least, Craig.
Tēnā koutou katoa, ko Craig Nielsen aho. I'm just part of our communications team at Whangarei District Council. I'm joining the meeting today because this is a bit of an unusual way for us to make a video. So we're just kind of studying and practicing that, and we want to know what we're putting out. So I'm kind of largely here on a technical kind of basis, and also just to make sure that we're putting out good, accurate information.
Kia ora, thanks, Craig. Thanks, everyone. So, koutou mā, ko te pairua tēnei hui. We'll be covering off on a presentation from Alison around the rating policy and relief. Then Jared, after that, Jared will be talking about whenua Māori representing Te Puni Kōkiri, and we'll just open it up to kind of any discussions amongst ourselves, or we may be able to preempt some of the questions as we're going through the presentation as well, and try and find some answers for our whānau sitting at home. So I'll hand over to you now, please, Alison.
Thank you. Every 3 years we review our rates relief policy, and that happened last year. However, with the central government's changes to the rating of whenua Māori, this year we are required to specifically address our rates remission and postponement policies for Māori Freehold Land. So that's what today's koro will focus on. The changes we are proposing are in response to feedback we've received and learnings since the implementation of the new legislation. How do rates work? Council decides how much money is needed each year from rates to fund its activities, so we can provide roads, footpaths, cycleways, supply water, treat waste and provide open spaces, libraries, etc. Rating policy determines how much each owner pays, and it's a relatively blunt tool. Some rates are a fixed charge per property, and some are based on the land value of the property. The land value of Whenua Māori is discounted to account for the number of owners and any traditional and culturally significant sites. Our remission and postponement policy addresses the bluntness of rates, reducing the rates for some properties. The objectives of our policy are to address affordability and anomalies, enable economic development, and protect our natural environment. There are two policies only for Māori Freehold Land, but that doesn't mean that the other policies can't be used for Whenua Māori. Legislation provides guidelines for Council to consider when formulating its policy for Whenua Māori. This is found in Schedule 11 of the Local Government Act. Just to summarise, and I think Jared's going to go more into this, what we need to do is recognise and support the use of the land for traditional purposes, to recognise whānau's relationship with the land and take into account whāhi tapu. We also need to assist in the preservation of Indigenous flora and fauna, and we need to recognise the importance of community services, papakainga and marae, which are provided by the land. We also need to prevent further alienation of Whenua Māori. Just to note that some land is not rated. So this includes marae, cemetery, Māori reservation, land protected by Ngā Whenua Rahu Kawanata, and unused Whenua Māori. The last two were added just last year. Looking at the numbers, you can see there are just over 50% of Māori freehold land is either non-rateable or receiving 100% or partial remission. Okay, so we have two policies. The first one is our remission policy. The second one is our postponement policy for Māori freehold land. The remission policy allows us to charge rates only on the part of a property that is being used. We hope this enables the development of land and addresses affordability for Māori landowners. The determining factor is use, and currently we have been unable to give rates relief when maybe we should be. For example, unfenced land that has been grazed by the neighbours and no income is being derived from it, or when a block was mowed to reduce fire risk. Should we be rating that land just because there is what is deemed use at the moment? So we're looking at not including land that has incidental use like that. There may also be some forest or bush that doesn't meet the Act's requirement to be non-rateable. So what we're trying to do is just clarify where rates shouldn't be payable on part of land. They're not big changes, they're just tweaks. So postponement policy. So rate arrears can be a roadblock for Māori. And postponement policy is about rates arrears. The rates arrears are transferred from a property's rates account to our holding account in our general ledger on our balance sheet, and then they're written off 6 years later. While the recent changes allow for the write-off of unrecoverable debt, there may be some occasion where the rates arrears don't meet the Act's requirements. We can continue to transfer the arrears to the holding account, but we'd like to have a bit more flexibility about writing them off sooner than the 6 years. So we'd like to hear your ideas. We'd like you to, but you need to make a submission by the 6th of May. If you wish to talk to the councillors, there is an opportunity on the 17th of May. It's easy to have you say. You just need to log on online, or just give us a call, or do it by post. Even if you don't wish to talk on the 17th of May, any submission that is made is passed on to the councillors for their consideration. We have, with the new legislation, we have created a new web page where you can find lots of information on the rating of whenua Māori, and you can also find application forms for the rates relief and also for the write-off of rates. We can help you if you need, so that if we can pre-fill all the data about the property for you, so that makes it easier for you to complete the application forms. So back to you, Jared.
I think we're both on mute, Aaron.
Aloha, mate. I was just saying, Alison, I'd love to go back into the presentation and on the slides that illustrated the considerations that are taking place within the council at the moment, to actually discuss them a bit more and what they mean, really, what they mean to our whānau. If we could bring that slide back up, please, or the presentation back up. And Jenny Lynn, also I'd be really keen on any feedback that you have as well whilst we're discussing these points. I think it's important that we do a bit of a deep dive on each point and take into consideration what it really means and what it means from the council's perspective, and also what that means for our whānau on the land. So the Local Government Act, Schedule 11, so it supports the use for traditional purposes and development. What does traditional purposes and development mean when in this context? And Jared, you might have a more accurate answer for me in this space.
Yeah, kia ora, Aaron. Well, as it's phrased there, traditional purposes could mean a lot of things to a lot of different people. And we know that within our kāinga Māori, of which there are many in Whangarei, and that those kāinga have a lot of Māori freehold land, that those lands have been used for a myriad of purposes, whether it be from grazing cattle right down to sections of that land being set aside for burial or for places of worship, or for more marae development or papakainga development. So I think a traditional purpose is quite a hard thing to define, but what we do have is a good understanding that when generations have been on the same whenua for a long time, that their traditions have been developed alongside their whānau. So yeah, traditional purposes, as it's talked about in Schedule 11, might seem a little bit narrow at times, because it is talking about things such as wāhi tapu and, you know, really talking about some of the things that are more aligned with our cultural practice and in terms of our day-to-day living as well. So a tradition in general is something that develops over time. I know of many people who now put special remembrance pieces into their whenua that take the actual afterbirth of their children in mokopuna and put it into that whenua. It's those sorts of things, I think, that have been talked about. But that's kind of offset, I think, Aaron, in that statement there around the development aspect of Māori land, and you could say that if that land has been occupied before, that housing on Māori land would be a traditional purpose or a traditional use of that land. But a lot of development might not be as traditional as that. So yeah, it's quite a wide spectrum of activity that we could be talking about here.
So the schedule talks about supporting pretty much any use, really, doesn't it? It's talking about development and traditional purposes. So under the bulletin points there, we've got further alienation and recognised inaccessibility. So my take on this is that we've got a large percentage of land blocked whenua Māori, and it's recognising that a lot of our people can't get back to their whenua to access it, to conduct collecting of rongoa. Well, if it's still in bush or what have you, it's really hard to work. But yeah, keen to discuss that in any way too. Recognise its significance, cultural, economic support and community services, protection and preservation of natural environments. That's a lot to recognise too, in terms of I think if we're going to have to recognise it, we have to understand it. And yeah, some good deep kōrero in here. The numbers: 749 properties, 108, which is 14%, partial remission. What do we mean by remission? When we say partial remission, what does remission mean, Alison?
So for those 108 properties, when we're giving partial remission, that means that not all the property is being used. So we're giving remission on the part. So we charge 100% and then maybe we give 80%, take 80% off because 80% of it's not being used. So that's where we, however, if there are 3 homes on it, then we will be rating for those 3 homes on that property.
What type of section do we put to it? Like the house itself, and then do we have a square meterage that we
No,
say?
It's just a single house. It's just a home, just a dwelling.
Okay.
It doesn't.
I think he's talking about the remission.
It doesn't measure. It doesn't put a measurable in there around the size of that house.
No.
Dwelling. Okay. Thank you. In 282, non-rateable or 100% remitted. So that's 38% don't pay rates on there, have been excused from any rates. Is that correct? No,
yeah, they don't pay rates because they meet what's called Schedule 1 of the Local Government Rating Act of being non-rateable, and that includes the properties that are unused. So that's a new addition to the Act. So we're working through all the properties slowly to work out if there are any properties that we haven't identified that should be non-rateable because they're 100% non-used. And at the same time, we try to engage with the owners to find out more about whether the property is being used or not, and whether they're eligible for any rates relief.
And in this financial term, that's totaled just over $250,000.
Yes, that's how much rates that got discounted off Māori Freehold Land for this year. So it's about the same every year.
Kia ora. And to the bits that I really wanted to talk about is they're on the next slide, I think, and these are the things that we're considering. So we're only part of a block is occupied or used. So we discussed that. That may be a dwelling. That's where we have a dwelling. Is that correct? What may be another example of that?
So you might have part of the land that is farmed and the rest of it is in bush. It's a good example. Or you might have various people with living on the land, and also one of the new things that we can do is send separate rates bills to the different whānau that are living in different dwellings on the land, and it's up to the trustees or the owners to draw for us and determine which part of the land should be rated for each whānau.
What if, in using your example of if you had half bush and you had half pasture, and you're farming, say, beef cattle on there, you would only charge for the you would only deem rateable the pasture.
That's
even though
right.
the cows, even though is that only if that bush is fenced off, or is that
Hear about that.
if the cows are going into the bush?
We'd only we'd only take the pasture into account of being rateable.
But it's good practice. We probably should be kaitiaki and be fencing off the bush.
Yes,
Might I add. To encourage owners or trustees to use or develop the land. So I'm pretty clear. I think I understand on that. So basically,
Rates on slightly.
view from rates relief, that money may be invested into the development of the land. Is that the expectation is behind this, or?
It's just a discount so that if you have a block and you clear 10% 1 year, and then in 2 years' time you clear another 10%, then the first year will only rate you for 10%. The next year, when you develop a little bit more, then we'll rate you for another 20 or 30%, depending how it goes. So you only pay for what you're using. It's to make it easier. We're not helping you finance anything. We're just helping you only pay for what you're using, and it's only for Māori Freehold Land, not for general land.
Kia ora. And then we get back to the matters in Schedule 11, and there's changes proposed to clarify unused land. Will that be more prescribed?
It's just to exclude things that we normally would include, and including the statement that any other matters in Schedule 11 just gives us some space if there's something that we've missed, that an owner brings to our attention that really should, merits remission from.
Oh, ka pai. And they were the things such as unfenced land grazed by neighbours' stock. So currently that's still rateable, is that correct?
Yes, because it's being used.
Yeah, right. Okay, so the consideration here is that if the fence was down and Uncle's stock's coming over to my land and his stock are getting fed on my grass, which I've got no control over, that it's then not deemed developed, that's rateable.
And just many of the owners are absentee. They can't come back to the land because they're living overseas, or so they don't know what's going on, and or it's inaccessible.
Kia ora. And mode to reduce fire risk, that's pretty black and white, that one. Indigenous forest is not non-rateable under the bush under the
Act.
Under the Act, but it's not used. However, exotic forests grown for the harvest are used. Are you able to explain that one a bit more, please?
So if you're growing, if on the land there is a pine forest and that's going to be harvested in the future, then that land is deemed as being used because there's going to be an income derived from it. And the road, for example, once it starts getting harvested and the logging trucks come in, then we need to maintain the roads for that. So it's the same as any other land where you're deriving income from the land, that it should be rateable.
What if you've got Indigenous forests I suppose my question is, can you tell me what under the Act non-rateable Indigenous forest means? Is it Indigenous forest that we're not making money off?
Exactly. Yeah.
Landslips. Okay. Protection against landslips.
So Kathy was,
yeah, I just said that an example might be where someone has planted some quick growing trees that they're not considering harvesting because they're using them for land protection for slip areas. So in other words, areas that have slipped and they've planted blue gums or something that can be harvested but won't be because they're doing it for another reason to protect the land. They just need to let us know, and we would not include that in the rateable portion.
I see. Thank you, Kilda. Right, I think these were the points that I wanted to just have a bit of a chat over. Thanks, Alison. Over to you, please, Jared.
Yeah, I think it's a rating on Māori land is a difficult thing for a number of people involved in it to actually clarify or get clarity on, and I think the reason for that is there's so much information to learn about it. For instance, we've talked about the Local Government Act, the Rating Act, but that relates to various other legislation as well, such as Te Ture Whenua Māori Act. So even in its legislative context, it's quite a convoluted thing to wade your way through. What's really important to remember, though, is that those who are living on the land actually know the capabilities of the land, or which parts are getting fenced and which aren't, which parts are being used for an economic return. And so I think it's really important for us as Māori landowners to engage our local government rating teams with a really good indication of how the land is being used, and in that way be able to take advantage of some of these policies. If there's a number of places we can go to help tell that story to the local government, and maps are always a great one. If there's anybody who's listening to this information at the moment that wants to know more about their land, there's various websites they can go to, such as Māori Land Online, which is the Māori Land Court website, and you can search your land blocks by name there. There's tupu.nz, which is another free website where you can pick up maps around your land, and those maps are all printable as well. What would be a really good format of conversation is if us as landowners were able to have conversations based on land use with our councils and other people using the same information. So sometimes we talk past each other because perhaps the cow that was in the paddock 2 years ago is no longer there, and therefore that land isn't being used anymore. But no one would be able to know that if we weren't talking about that. So I just wanted to offer for anybody out there who wants more of that information, at the Te Puni Kōkiri Taitokoro office, you can see Whenua Māori service advisors there that can help you gather that information up. They can give you a wide range of information to have conversations with councils and other agencies on. You might want to talk to the advisors there around what the land potential is to do with it, whether it's good for housing or whether it's good for cropping or other land uses. There's a range of services that those people in the regional offices can provide. But I think getting the mapping information is important. So talked about a couple of free places you can visit in your own time online to get an idea of that. And there's actually people on the ground within the district that can talk you through some of that information before you go and speak with council.
Kia ora, Juan. Some great useful information there for whānau sitting at home that may watch this. And I hope that we do get some, you know, a lot of submissions through, and we do get a lot of feedback. So I'd just be keen to run over those dates again, Alison. So the submissions close when? Your microphone.
Right, I was muted. So the submissions close on the 6th of May, and the hearings are on the 17th of May. If anyone wants to come and talk to the councillors and the mayor.
So if I've had no engagement with the council before, how do submissions work? Like, what is that process? What does that mean?
So you can just go online and just fill out the form online, and it automatically comes through to us with any of your ideas. Alternatively, you can write a submission on a piece of paper and bring it into us. At our offices, we've got these document which is detailing the changes that we would like to make, and on the back of it is a form that you complete, which you can add your suggestions to. And so all those, if you indicate on your submission that you'd like to talk to council, then we'll contact you and agree a time that you can come in and talk to the councillors.
And that would be on the 17th.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm interested in putting in a submission. I'd go onto the Whangarei District Council website, and there I would be able to find what am I looking for there? Is there a tag that says submissions?
So you go into the website, look on the tile that says have your say, and then you go into the one on rates relief for WHENUA Māori.
Kia ora. Craig, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, just that wherever we do post this this video korero, we'll also have a link directly to that page, which the full title is Proposed Rates Remission and Postponement Policy for Māori Freehold Land.
Kia ora.
We'll make sure that's just really easy to find. Wherever you're watching this video, you can also find the link to that page. But you do have to get your submissions in by the 6th of May. The form is going to close automatically. It's hard to argue with a robot.
So let's say I go online, I click on the link, I go online, I fill out this, there's a template of stuff, and then it's going to ask me whether I want to talk to the councillors, address the councillors or not. And then the council would get back to me and they would say, yes, on the 17th is when the council will be sitting to listen to any submissions. So the hearings will take place. Are they hearings or are they just council meetings?
Yeah, so it's a special kind of a council meeting called a hearing, and they'll be looking at submissions and hearing anybody that would like to come and present. So just, yeah, you can make that clear in any way that you'd like to as part of your submission. Make sure you just clearly state that you wanted to come in on the 17th of May, and someone will be in touch to make time.
And I know that these things, they're kind of very traditional, kind of in terms of how long do you have? Because, you know, if I'm going to the marae, I get as long as I'm standing. So keen to get an indication of what that would look like.
Yeah, hard. That's yeah, it can be quite a traditional kind of environment, and normally you have 5 minutes to present to council.
5 minutes, cool.
Yeah, and then I think after 5 minutes there's a bell. You know, if you've got a lot to say, usually they can be at least a little bit flexible, but they do need to keep to the rules so that everybody gets a fair say.
Cool. Kia ora. So there we have it, whānau. You know, if I'm looking at these points that the council are considering at the moment that we were discussing earlier, also I now know that I can, if I'm watching this video, there's a link there that I can tap onto. I can put a submission in. I know that the council are really interested to hear feedback from whānau Hapaniwi around whenua Māori. And I think that the more submissions that we can generate, it gives a better thinking power to our people, and also for the consideration of our elected members as well. So I do encourage everyone to get involved and engage with the process, have your say. Likewise with the elections, you know, we've got to have our say. to mai Māori mā will be the slogan that we'll be throwing around left, right and centre here in Tai Tokerau and in Torohi o Whāngarei. However, I think if there's any other further contributions that anyone would like to make? Oh, kia ora whānau. Me kaine ki o koutou, mo tō wā, mo tō whakaaro e poto mai ki roto e tēnei mātou nei hui, tō kouwhau hoki, Alison, Jared tō wā hara mai ki te tautoko tēnei kaupapa, whakamara mātou ki a mātou nei whānau, pēhea au e whai e mōhio, pēhea au e whakapakari te whenua, ue rātu mea. Gillian, very quiet sitting there in the corner, but I'm sure you'll be taking notes. And Craig, always good to see you. So thank you one and all. Koutou mā, e nā hapu, e nā whānau, e noho ki roto e tō kainga, ki runga tō whenua, ko tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou. Māori mā tū mai, e pāna ki tēnei kaupapa, tukuna mai tō hia ki nā kaunehera, kia mōhio ai nā mema, nā kai kaunehera, te hia o ngā iwi Māori. Nā reira ki roto e tēnā, te āhuatanga o te aroha mō ngā iwi Māori, mō tātou nei whenua hoki mai papatūnu ki tainua te rangi nui, ko tēnei te mihi atu ki a koutou, tēnā rā tātou katoa.